Can a pillar of justice, I mean the very institution meant to uphold the rule of law, actually survive when fear and intense politics really take hold?
That's a critical question.
It really is, especially thinking about the U.S. Department of Justice. It makes you wonder.
Absolutely. And look, we believe some books just have to be challenged, examined closely. So this critique, it uses where it fits a step-by-step critical thinking framework. We're mapping claims to the evidence, drawing on Paul and Elder's work. We also bring in an intellectual framework from Mortimer J. Adler, and we look at ethics using the Golden Rule and the U.S. Preamble to spot, well, ethical imbalances. Then we wrap up with a logical analysis and hopefully a balanced conclusion.
Okay, so our deep dive today is into a really significant piece of investigative work, Injustice: How Politics and Fear Vanquished America's Justice Department. It's by Carol Leonnig and Aaron C. Davis, both Pulitzer winners. And it's not just, a timeline of events. They argue the DOJ was fundamentally broken.
It's a serious charge. And just so you know, you are experiencing a unique two-host AI conversation powered by Google's NotebookLM for deeper, more dynamic book critique.
So the main idea in Injustice, it's dark. Really quite alarming, actually. The authors are saying the Department of Justice wasn't just tweaked, it was completely transformed. It stopped being this impartial pillar of law and instead got hit by two kind of contradictory problems at once. First, weaponized for partisan aims.
Under one administration.
Right. And then later, paralyzed by overcorrection under the next one.
That dual crisis, that back and forth, is really the core of the book's argument. And to really get it, we need to map those two big claims to the evidence they lay out. Let's start with that first one, the weaponization. They're saying the DOJ's independence was just chipped away, systematically, pressure from the top, constantly, to go after enemies and, well, protect friends.
Yeah, and the strength of it is how they detail it. It's not just vague stuff. They cite documented proof, like efforts to mess with internal investigations, leaning on career prosecutors, even specific actions targeting FBI agents who were seen as, disloyal.
Exactly. It wasn't subtle. And the book describes this insidious creep, how it eroded things. You get accounts of officials being pushed out or feeling they had to play ball. It created this climate, this feeling that your job didn't depend on doing good work, but on whether you were politically aligned. That kind of thing can poison an agency fast.
And that intense pressure campaign, it's then put right next to the second big claim. Under Merrick Garland, the argument goes, the reaction was this deep, almost crippling paralysis. This overwhelming fear of appearing partisan took over, leading to bureaucratic stagnation. And the authors say that might have harmed justice just as much.
It's the scale of the delays that's striking. It wasn't just, cases moving slowly, which happens. The book argues this fear of how things looked caused critical investigations to just stall or crawl. Things like inquiries into election interference, and importantly, the handling of classified documents down at Mar-a-Lago.
And they back this stagnation claim up pretty thoroughly. They use confidential investigation timelines. You can see these long periods of nothing happening, plus lots of first-hand accounts. Dozens of people inside the department talking about this extreme caution, this frustration with inaction. It shows that doing nothing out of fear can be as bad as doing the wrong thing.
And the sourcing is really crucial here. It's not just speculation. They used a ton of first-person accounts, many anonymous, understandably, from people right there inside the DOJ. And they cross-referenced that with public records, news reports from the time. It builds a pretty solid picture.
So, okay, we have the facts, the claims, the evidence. But the book also pushes us to think about the kind of information we're getting. If we look at it through, say, a framework for evaluating knowledge, we can sort things out. Like the detailed descriptions of DOJ procedures, specific dates on memos, that's factual stuff, backed by evidence. That qualifies as knowledge, as understanding.
Right. Verifiable details. But they go further than just reporting facts. The book moves into offering warnings, making policy points about, how fragile things are after Trump, recommending future actions. Now, those warnings, they come from deep reporting and experience. That's more like informed opinion, maybe even wisdom advice on how to move forward.
That distinction matters, I think. It highlights the book's logical approach. Because the factual base is so detailed, so transparently laid out, they generally avoid logical fallacies. They aren't just making emotional appeals or attacking people. The conclusions seem to follow from the evidence they present, the documented actions, the verified delays.
True. But there is a counter-argument we should mention, one that's come up in reviews. While the reporting is strong, some critics feel the book's narrative structure, which is quite dramatic, it has to be said, might risk overemphasizing partisan failures. Maybe without giving enough weight to just how complex and slow government bureaucracy always is, regardless of politics?
Hmm, that's a fair point.
It's tough, critics say, to perfectly separate deliberate political interference from just standard institutional inertia, things grinding slowly.
That is a real challenge. Where does one end and the other begin? Which brings us naturally to the ethical side of things.
Yeah.
How do we judge the conduct here, using something like the golden rule?
Exactly. The book lets us do that. It implicitly asks, did the DOJ, when dealing with political figures, treat them the way those in power would want to be treated if roles were reversed? Was there basic fairness?
And the book's answer seems pretty clear. A failure of moral reciprocity. It points out real harm, not just to political figures, but to career officials. People whose lives and work got derailed either by the weaponization or ignored because of the paralysis. And maybe most importantly, harm to us, the citizens whose trust in impartial justice gets eroded.
That decline in public trust? It's serious. It really warrants a moment of reflection. How do these kinds of systemic failures impact your connection to civic life, your sense of national stability? We're talking about faith in the very bedrock system.
It's huge, the scale of it. And thinking through these complex issues really benefits from, well, structured reflection.
We definitely recommend taking mindful moments. That's our YouTube channel. It offers AI book analysis, summaries, critiques, and these podcasts, all aimed at inspiring reflection and rational thought.
Good point. Okay, let's shift now to the constitutional impact. This might be the most sobering part of the analysis. The book doesn't explicitly say we're using the preamble, but it feels like it uses those foundational promises of the U.S. Constitution as a kind of moral benchmark to measure the DOJ's dysfunction. And when you look at it that way, the failures seem quite alarming for everyone.
Yeah, let's connect the dots. The preamble starts with, form a more perfect union, in. The book shows how eroding public trust through politicization and the polarization that follows directly works against that. When people think justice is biased, the union weakens.
Then there's established justice. That promise seems clearly violated when you have this mix of political influence and bureaucratic slowdowns leading to uneven accountability. Justice wasn't seen as fair or consistent. It looked like it protected the powerful sometimes.
And ensure domestic tranquility. The book suggests that mishandled or delayed investigations, particularly after January 6th, actually increased public anger and division, didn't calm things down at all. That slow pace just created a space for more speculation, more political attacks. It arguably made civic life hotter, more tense.
Even provide for the common defense comes into play. The book points to the slow handling of the classified documents investigation. That delay shows that DOJ dysfunction isn't just political theater, it has real national security consequences. When the rule of law wobbles, national security can too.
So Leonnig and Davis don't just point fingers. They offer this pretty stark long-term warning based on everything they found. They're basically saying if this politicization isn't fixed, it risks long-term harm to democracy, civic trust, and societal stability. Their analysis really pushes for systemic reforms, not just changing the people at the top.
So putting it all together, what's our take on the book itself? Our balanced conclusion is that injustice is, well, essential reading. If you want to understand the deep pressures on American governance right now, you need to read it. It's got incredibly deep sourcing, rigorous investigation, it gives you new insider details, and it offers this necessary nuanced picture of both periods, Trump's active manipulation, and Garland's cautious overcorrection.
Absolutely essential. But even with that rigor, critiques identified a couple of potential weaknesses, as we discussed. One, that the narrative urgency, the storytelling aspect, might slightly simplify the messy reality of bureaucracy, maybe makes the lines between good and bad actors a bit too sharp sometimes. And second, some wanted less focus just on Trump and Garland, and maybe more context on non-Trump factors, or broader bipartisan issues with the institution that might go back further.
Fair points. But despite those nuances, the book leaves you with, I think, three really powerful takeaways. Insight number one, the DOJ's independence isn't just some nice idea. It's ethically vital, civically essential. Losing it truly damages democracy's foundations.
Insight number two, justice can be stalled in two ways. There's partisan overreach, like the targeting we talked about, but there's also overzealous caution, like the paralysis under Garland. Both can stop justice cold and make divisions worse.
And insight number three, we need systemic reform and ongoing ethical vigilance. Just talking about restoring trust isn't enough. It needs real, practical changes to the system itself. Promises aren't going to cut it.
Which leaves us with a pretty big unresolved question for you to think about. Can the DOJ actually recover its institutional independence? Or has politicization become so embedded, so endemic, that maybe we've passed a point of no return?
We have provided this analysis using a robust framework developed for systematic and precise critique. Click the link on screen for the in-depth book analysis. Subscribe, share, purchase via link, and think rationally.
See the many genre-based book podcasts at Mindful Moments. Subscribe and nourish your mind on the go.